Chapter 10 is entitled Communication. It's a chapter that deals with programs that you can use to communicate with other people or other computers. We'll actually only be covering two programs in this chapter. One is called telnet and one is called mail. Let's begin. We'll first discuss the program called telnet. You've actually already sort of seen the telnet program in operation. You've seen a Windows version of telnet that I've been using to obtain a shell on the Zip computer. Zip being my internet service provider. So what actually is telnet? Well, telnet is a program used to obtain a login prompt, typically a login prompt, but sometimes it can just pull up immediately a shell on another Unix machine. So you can see the following screen is actually a typical login prompt on a Unix computer. I get the word login, I type in my login prompt, in my login name, you've seen this before, and then I type in my password, and then at some point I end up with a shell. The important point to all of this is that the computer that I'm connecting to must be available to the local computer via a TCP/IP network. So I would be typically using one computer, maybe logged into one Unix computer, and then I wish to obtain a shell, or at least a login prompt which will then give me a shell, on another Unix computer. And both those two Unix computers must be connected to each other via a network, specifically via a TCP/IP network. Now, of course, most of you will know that the Internet is a very large TCP/IP network, and so it is possible to connect to Unix computers across the Internet. Now, clearly, the only version of telnet that I've shown you so far is a Windows version that will establish a connection to a Unix computer on the Internet from my Windows computer. But, of course, Unix has its own version of telnet. Unix's version of telnet is called, surprisingly enough, telnet, and I type that in and press enter and see what happens. Okay, I'm left with a little telnet prompt. What am I supposed to do next? Well, I type in the command open. That's a telnet command, not a Unix shell command. It's a telnet command, and I specify the name of the computer to which I want to connect. I can specify the computer name, such as shell.xyz.com, or I can specify the computer's IP address, something like 206.91.12.103, or something like that. Now, I happen to have a shell account on another Unix computer on the Internet, which I will now telnet to, and that is called cyberspace.org. Now, anyone can get an account on cyberspace.org. It's very easy to do that. I press enter. Notice it says escape character is control right square bracket. We'll come back to that and see what that means in a moment. And I get a login prompt. Now I type in my login name and password, which can certainly be different to the one that I'm using to connect to Zip, but I've chosen the same login name. Password I'm not going to tell you about. And I'm logged in. Notice I get a different set of messages logging into this Unix as I did to the other Unix. So I find that I'm again given a bash shell. I actually chose that one. Let's see what directory I'm in. I'm in /c/m/v/mvirtue. Okay, well that's the home directory they've decided to create for me. Let's see what files I have in my current directory. ls-la. And I have a few. Notice that they're all hidden files. They're all probably configuration files or something of that nature. And I appear to be in the group called Sapience, or at least all the files that I own are in the group called Sapience. I can also discover a bit about the Unix system that I'm on. Uname is Sunos, which means that I am connected to a version of Sun Solaris, a particular variant of Unix. So theoretically I can now go and create some directories, use vi to edit some files, etc, etc. Let's see how many users are connected to this computer. Who pipe to wc-l, and there are 48. And so on. And finally, when I'm finished with this particular telnet session, I type in exit. Now, at this particular point, on this particular system that I'm connected to, I'm presented with another login prompt. That doesn't typically happen. Usually when you type in exit and terminate the shell, the telnet session also terminates, and you're left back in your original system in your original shell. However, this system is offering me another login prompt, and I don't want to log in again, although I obviously could. So I'm going to use that control right square bracket. So I'm going to hold down the control key and press right square bracket, and I get another telnet prompt. So what I'm going to do now is I'm simply going to quit telnet. Connection closed, and I'm back at my original shell. So once I typed telnet on the command line and I got this telnet prompt, I've actually shown you two actual telnet commands. One is open, followed by a host name, a computer name, and another one was quit. I'm sure there are a bunch of telnet commands that I could use. Let's see if we can figure out what they are. I typically type in help at a command like this, and there you go. Those are all telnet commands. They can all be typed at the telnet prompt. We've only used two of them so far, open and quit. We can obviously use close to close a particular telnet session and create another. I'm just going to quit for the moment, and I'll show you a quick and easy way to connect to a particular computer. Type in telnet and then the computer name on the command line. Sort of a shortcut. Cyberspace.org, and it opens telnet and immediately issues the open command to connect to that particular computer. And off we go. Finally I get my login prompt. Again, I will interrupt that. I'll use my escape character, control right square bracket, which means I'm still connected to the actual remote computer, but I've just temporarily gotten out and can issue commands that affect that connection, like quit. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Obviously you can read the man page on telnet to find out what all those other commands do, but essentially that's it. If you ever need to obtain a shell on another computer and you happen to know a username and password on that computer, then of course you can use telnet to connect to it. Feel free, if you like, to go to cyberspace.org and create yourself a little account that you can use to test your various things that you've learnt in this course.